For 3 years, landlords pulled off the cruelest scheme in American housing history. No weapons, no threats, just a letter. Your rent just increased 70%. Pay it or get out. Millions of people got that letter at the same time. They exploited the defenseless and called it business. From Miami to Seattle, landlords became the new rulers. They raised prices whenever they wanted, however much they wanted. 50%, 80%, 100% overnight. They were certain people would pay anything, that people had no choice but to pay or end up homeless. The victims were everywhere, but nobody was listening. A young mother worked from 6 a.m. to midnight, daycare job, then restaurant, then overnight office cleaning. She slept 4 hours. All of it just to pay $2,400 for a cramped one-bedroom where her daughter fell asleep to the sound of her crying in the kitchen. Nurses worked 12-hour shifts saving people's lives, then slept in their cars because apartments cost more than their monthly salary. Teachers who taught children to read and write lived like they were struggling, in old trailers without heating, 40 miles from their schools. And the landlords? They celebrated. On investor forums, they bragged, "Just raised rent from $1,200 to $2,800. Tenants are crying, but they'll pay." Others applauded. Shared strategies for maximum profit extraction. Laughed at people begging for lease renewals. They bought a third house, a fourth, a fifth. Built empires while people who could barely survive paid for it all. But in 2025, everything collapsed. And it's the most satisfying thing you'll ever see. Right now, these landlords are panicking. Their luxury apartments sit empty. They're losing thousands of dollars every month. Some are already bankrupt, others are close. And you know what's the best part? They're begging for tenants. The same landlords who evicted families without mercy are now writing, "Please move in, 3 months free, no deposit, we'll take anyone." But people aren't stupid, they remember. Every humiliation, every eviction threat, every time a landlord said, "If you don't like it, leave." Now it's the landlord's turn to leave, with empty hands. Today we're showing you the top 5 cities where greed is getting exactly what it deserves, where landlords are learning that when you take everything from people, you end up with nothing. Stay until number 1, because what's happening in New York City will prove that even the most powerful real estate empires fall when they're built on the exploitation of working people. Number 5. Boise, Idaho. The city where landlords learned that endless greed has very real limits. Boise's story is perfect. It shows what happens when greed meets reality and loses badly. When COVID hit in 2020, remote workers fled California like they were escaping disaster. They poured into Boise, bringing San Francisco money to Idaho prices. And landlords saw their chance to get rich quick. A teacher named Jennifer had lived in Boise for 15 years. She paid $850 for a decent 2-bedroom apartment. She could afford groceries. She could save a little. She had a life. Then the California money arrived. Her landlord raised her rent to $1,400, then $1,800, then $2,200. In just 2 years, her rent more than doubled. Jennifer's salary? It went up 3%. 3%. While her rent went up 160%. She worked summer school, tutored on weekends, sold her car and took the bus, cut out everything, cable, restaurants, new clothes. She stopped seeing friends because she couldn't afford coffee, and still, she couldn't make it work. In 2023, Jennifer left Boise, the city where she built her career, where she had friends, where she loved her life. Gone. Her landlord was happy. He found a tech worker from Seattle who paid $2,500 without asking questions. The landlord thought he was a genius. But in 2025, that tech worker got laid off. He left. And now the apartment sits empty. The landlord dropped the price to $2,200, then $2,000, then $1,800, then $1,600. Nobody calls, because Jennifer is gone, and thousands like Jennifer are gone. The teachers, nurses, restaurant workers, the people who actually made Boise a real community, they're all gone. Right now, rent in Boise is down 13% year over year, the worst drop in the entire Mountain West. But that 13% drop, it's not enough to bring people back. Those luxury apartments. Number 4. Las Vegas, Nevada. The city where landlords bet everything on greed and lost spectacularly. Vegas has always been about taking risks, but the landlords took the wrong bet, and now they're paying the price. Let me tell you about Maria. She worked as a housekeeper at one of the big casinos on the Strip. 40 hours a week, cleaning rooms. Hard work, honest work. In 2019, Maria paid $1,100 for a small 2-bedroom apartment where she lived with her 2 kids. It was tight, but it worked. She could feed her children, buy school supplies, sometimes take them to a movie. Then the California exodus started. Investors swooped in like predators. They bought houses in bulk, converted them to short-term rentals, raised rents on anyone with a long-term lease. Maria's rent went to $1,500, then $1,800, then $2,100. Her wages at the casino went up $50 a month, $50, while her rent went up $1,000. Maria started working double shifts. Her kids barely saw her. She was cleaning rooms when they left for school and still cleaning when they went to bed. On her days off, she cleaned houses privately for cash. Still not enough. In 2024, Maria moved in with her sister's family. 3 adults, 5 kids, in a 3-bedroom apartment. Maria sleeps on the couch. Her children share a room with their cousins. Her old landlord? He converted her apartment to a short-term rental, listed it on Airbnb for $200 a night, thought he'd make a fortune. But in 2025, the tourists stopped coming as much. The conventions slowed down. People cut back on Vegas trips. And that Airbnb? It sits empty most months. The landlord is losing $2,000 every month on mortgage, HOA fees, utilities, and cleaning. He tried to switch back to long-term rental, listed it at $2,000, then $1,800, then $1,600. Maria saw the listing. She laughed and kept scrolling. Why would she go back? To give money to the man who destroyed her family's stability? Right now, rent in Las Vegas is down 12%. But that's not the real story. The real story is all those investors who bought houses to flip into vacation rentals. They're drowning in losses. Tourism is soft. Operating costs are crushing. Every month, they lose money. Some have already walked away from properties, letting banks take them. Others are desperately trying to sell at 30–40% losses. The neighborhoods around Henderson and North Las Vegas are filled with for lease signs. Some streets have 5 or 6 empty houses. Properties that were supposed to be money machines are now anchors pulling investors underwater. Landlords are offering absurd deals. 2 months free, no deposit, flexible leases, first month at half price. They're practically begging. But the workers they pushed out, the casino employees, restaurant staff, retail workers, they're not coming back. They found roommates, moved to cheaper towns. Some left Nevada entirely. And the landlords are learning a hard. Number 3. Austin, Texas. Where the tech bubble didn't just burst, it exploded, and landlords are still dealing with the aftermath. Austin called itself the new Silicon Valley. For a minute, it was. Tech money poured in, startups everywhere. The city was booming. But boom for who? Let me tell you about David. He was a music teacher at a middle school in East Austin. He'd lived there for 12 years. He paid $1,100 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Small, but it was his home. He was part of the community that made Austin weird, creative, alive. Then the tech workers arrived. David's landlord sent him a letter in 2021. Your rent is now $1,800. No warning, no negotiation, just pay or leave. David tried to negotiate. He'd been a perfect tenant for a decade, always paid on time, took care of the place. The landlord didn't care. "That's market rate now," he said. "Tech workers will pay it." David worked extra jobs, private music lessons after school, weekend gigs at restaurants. He stopped buying anything except food, wore the same clothes until they fell apart. In 2022, another letter. "Your rent is now $2,400. David couldn't do it. A music teacher's salary couldn't cover $2,400 plus utilities plus food plus everything else. He moved to San Antonio, lost his students, lost his community, started over at 43 years old. His landlord found a software engineer who paid $2,800 without blinking. The landlord thought he'd won big. But in 2025, that software engineer got laid off. Meta cut 20% of staff. Oracle downsized. Tesla stopped hiring. The tech worker left Austin and went back to California. Now David's old apartment sits empty. The landlord dropped rent to $2,400. No interest. Down to $2,000. Nothing. Now it's listed at $1,800, the same price that forced David out. And still nobody wants it. Right now, Austin rent is down 14%. The worst crash in the entire Sun Belt. But for landlords who went all in on the tech boom, 14% doesn't capture the devastation. Those gleaming downtown towers, the Independent, 70 Rainey, all those luxury buildings, they're half empty. Vacancy rates are at 10-year highs. Entire floors are dark. The rooftop pools that were supposed to justify $3,500 rents, nobody's swimming. The co-working spaces? Empty. The amenities that landlords use to justify insane prices? Useless when there's nobody there. Landlords are offering 3 months free rent, waived deposits, free parking worth $200 a month, concert tickets, gift cards. They're throwing everything hoping something works. But Austin's musicians are gone. The artists left. The teachers found jobs in cheaper cities. The nurses moved to places where they can actually afford to live. The tech workers who replaced them? Most are gone too, laid off or relocated. The ones who remain aren't paying $3,000 for a one-bedroom anymore. Number 2, Miami, Florida, where paradise became unaffordable for everyone except the rich, and now even paradise is crumbling. Miami's rental boom wasn't a boom. It was financial destruction for working people. Rent went up 60% in 2 years. 60%. That's not a market adjustment. That's economic exploitation. Let me tell you about Rosa. She was a nurse at Jackson Memorial Hospital. She worked COVID wards when everyone else was terrified. She held dying patients' hands when their families couldn't be there. She risked her life every single day. Rosa paid $1,400 for a one-bedroom apartment in 2020. It was a 20-minute drive from the hospital, perfect for her shifts. In 2021, her landlord raised rent to $1,900. Rosa had to cut back. No more eating out, no more savings. Everything went to rent. In 2022, another increase, $2,500. Rosa was a nurse saving lives in a pandemic, and she couldn't afford a one-bedroom apartment near her hospital. Think about that. A healthcare worker couldn't afford to live near the hospital where she worked. She moved in with 2 roommates. A 38-year-old nurse sharing a 3-bedroom with strangers just to survive. She had no privacy, no peace. She worked 12-hour shifts surrounded by suffering, then came home to roommates arguing about dishes. Her old landlord converted the building to luxury units, renovated everything. Now charges $3,200 for what used to be Rosa's apartment. He markets it to crypto millionaires and remote workers. But in 2025, those crypto millionaires are gone. The market crashed. The remote workers went home. And that luxury apartment? Empty for 6 months now. The landlord has dropped the price to $2,800. Then $2,500, then $2,200. He's offering 2 months free rent and a $2,000 gift card. Still empty. Because Rosa isn't coming back. and thousands of nurses, teachers, restaurant workers like her aren't coming back. They found stability elsewhere. They're done being exploited. Right now, Miami rent is down 11%. But the real story is what's happening behind the scenes. Insurance premiums have tripled. Hurricane insurance is bankrupting building owners. HOA fees have exploded after the Surfside collapse forced new safety requirements. Property taxes keep rising. Landlords who thought they were sitting on gold mines are discovering they're sitting on money pits. Even with tenants, many are losing money. Without tenants, they're losing massive amounts of cash. Condos that sold for $900,000 in 2022 can't sell for $700,000 now. Some sellers have given up. They just stop making payments and let the bank take the property. The short-term rental market that was supposed to save investors? It's dead. Tourism is down. Operating costs are crushing. What was supposed to be passive income turned into a second job with negative returns. Even foreign investors are running away. Rising seas, hurricane threats, endless special assessments. They're realizing Miami is a bad long-term investment. Brickell, Miami Beach, downtown. Everywhere you look, there are desperate for lease. Number 1. New York City. The empire that thought it was invincible. The city where landlords believed demand would last forever. They were wrong. For generations, New York's rental market operated on one principle. No matter what happens, people will always pay. The city's gravity was irresistible. Opportunity was endless. Demand was infinite. Landlords acted like rulers, and they treated renters like they should be grateful for the privilege of living in New York. Let me tell you about Michael. He worked in media, entry-level job at a magazine. He moved to New York in 2019 with dreams like everyone else. Make it here, make it anywhere. Michael shared a studio apartment in Queens with his girlfriend. They paid $1,800. It was tiny, 400 square feet. The shower leaked. The heat barely worked in winter. But it was New York, so they paid. In 2021, the landlord raised rent to $2,300. No improvements, no repairs, just that's the market. Michael's girlfriend wanted to leave New York. Michael insisted they stay. He was building his career, making connections, living the dream. In 2022, rent went to $2,800 for a studio with a leaking shower and broken heat. Michael worked 60-hour weeks. His girlfriend worked full-time and freelanced on weekends. Together, they made decent money, and they still lived paycheck to paycheck, spending half their income on a 400-square-foot apartment. They stopped going out, stopped seeing friends, stopped doing anything except work and sleep. The New York experience they dreamed about? Gone. Replaced by stress, exhaustion, and constant money anxiety. In 2023, another increase, $3,200. That's when Michael's girlfriend left. Not just the apartment, she left him. Moved back to Ohio. She told him, "I can't sacrifice everything for a dream that's destroying me." Michael tried to stay, found a roommate. They split the $3,200. Two grown men in a studio apartment, sleeping in shifts basically, just to live in New York. In 2024, the magazine laid off 40% of staff. Michael was one of them. He stayed unemployed for 5 months, burned through his savings, finally found another job in Philadelphia. He left New York. The dream was over. His landlord listed the studio at $3,500. It sat empty for 4 months. He dropped it to $3,200. Then $2,800. Then $2,500. Now in 2025, it's listed at $2,200 with 2 months free rent. Still empty. Because Michael is gone. And millions like Michael are gone. The young people who were willing to sacrifice everything for New York realized the city doesn't give back. It just takes. Right now, Manhattan rents are down 12%. Brooklyn and Queens? Down 15% in some neighborhoods. For the first time in living memory, landlords in New York are scared. The luxury towers in Midtown? Partially empty. Billionaires Row? Apartments that were supposed to sell for millions are being repriced hundreds of thousands lower and still not selling. Corporate layoffs in finance, media, and tech destroyed the high-income renter base. Young professionals aren't moving to New York anymore. They're choosing Charlotte, Nashville, Austin, cities where they can actually build lives instead of just surviving. International buyers who propped up the market for years? They're gone. Global uncertainty, rising taxes, political instability. New York doesn't look like a safe bet anymore. Even the wealthy are reconsidering. Why pay $8,000 a month for a one-bedroom when you can work remotely from somewhere with actual quality of life? Smaller landlords are in crisis. Many bought during the boom with huge loans. Refinancing at today's rates is destroying their cash flow. Some are already facing foreclosure. Others are desperately trying to sell before they lose everything. The incentives being offered now would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Free rent, waived deposits, luxury upgrades included. Landlords are negotiating, begging, competing for tenants. For the working people of New York, the teachers making $55,000 who could never afford Manhattan, the nurses who commuted 2 hours each way, the service workers who kept the city running while living 3 families to an apartment. This moment is complicated. Rents are down, but they're still impossibly high. A 12% drop from crushing to merely overwhelming doesn't change daily reality. But something deeper is shifting. The myth of New York's invincibility is cracking. Landlords who operated with absolute certainty are now uncertain. The power that was entirely on one side is starting to balance. The teachers who were pushed to the Bronx, then to New Jersey, then out of the region entirely? They're not coming back. The artists who made New York culturally relevant, they're creating in cheaper cities now. The young dreamers who were willing to suffer for opportunity, they realized other cities have opportunities too, with way less suffering. What's left is a city learning a painful lesson. You can't build a sustainable economy on extraction. When housing becomes unaffordable for everyone except the ultra-rich, eventually you run out of people to sustain the city. The restaurants have fewer customers. The stores have fewer shoppers. The cultural scene has fewer artists. New York is still New York, but it's becoming a smaller, less vibrant version of itself. For people like Michael, who sacrificed everything and got nothing except debt and broken dreams, watching New York's rental market stumble feels like validation. The system that crushed them is showing its weakness. The landlords who thought they were untouchable are touching reality. The investors who thought demand was infinite are learning it's not. The empire that thought it would last forever is discovering that all empires eventually fall. In 2025, New York City teaches the biggest lesson of all. No market is too powerful to fail. No city is too important to face consequences. And when you build an economy on exploiting people rather than serving them, eventually, those people leave. And when they're gone, all you're left with is empty apartments and the echo of what could have been. Across America, landlords are learning the oldest lesson in economics. You can't exploit people forever. Eventually, they break. Or they leave. Or they fight back. For 3 years, landlords acted like rulers. They raised rents without limit. They evicted families without mercy. They treated housing like a stock market and people like profit margins. Now they're paying the price. Empty apartments, falling rents, financial panic. Some are already bankrupt. More will follow. And you know what? They earned it. Every empty unit, every dollar lost, every sleepless night worrying about mortgage payments. They showed no empathy when times were good for them. They deserve no empathy now that times are bad. This isn't just about numbers, it's about justice. The working people who were crushed, the nurses, teachers, service workers who keep America running, they're finally getting validation. The system that seemed rigged against them is cracking. The landlords who seemed invincible are vulnerable. The power that was entirely on one side is finally balancing. Some cities will recover, some will adapt, some will shrink. But everywhere, the lesson is the same. Greed doesn't build sustainable economies, it builds instability. And in 2025, that instability is showing. For everyone who struggled through impossible rent increases, who worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof overhead, who lost homes and communities to landlord greed, this moment is for you. You didn't break, the system broke. And now everyone can see it. If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening, hit subscribe. Share it with everyone who needs to understand that the rental market isn't just crashing, it's correcting. Because for the first time in years, we're returning to a simple truth. Housing should be affordable. Cities should serve people, not profit. And landlords should remember that without tenants, they have nothing. The numbers tell the story, but behind every number is a person who suffered. And in 2025, those people are finally being heard. Thanks for watching.